Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had diagnosis Quirk Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, lukasraccoon from WhatIf. So let's start the video. Guys, look, it's Deku. How does a quirkless freak like you still come here and take place from people who really need it, huh? After Midoriya Izuku was declared quirkless, his life turned upside down. He just wished he could run away from reality. He just turned 4 and entered the doctor's office with his mom. The white rooms with the natural colored floor really took the life out of him, but not as much as the doctor's next sentence. "Sorry boy, you better give it up." The words felt heavy on his heart, like 1,000 rocks suddenly regaining gravity and pulling you down. His little all-might figurine fell out of his hand, alongside with his hope to be a hero. "Are you sure?" His mom tried to bargain. The short-goggled man pointed at the X-ray of Izuku's leg. "You see this little joint there? That's an extra joint that only quirkless people have. We still don't have it explained scientifically why, but that's enough of a proof." The disappointed look on his mom's face will never disappear from his mind, as she picked up the toy from the floor using her quirk. They left the office and met outside with Hisashi. "Well, what is it?" Inko couldn't keep her look straight into her husband's eyes, not to mention Izuku, who stared blankly into the void. No hiding from the truth. What would he tell Kacchan? And the other kids at school? Can he still be a hero? The ride in the car back was quiet. Nobody was able to place one word, and the tension could be felt like invisible walls made out of strings about to rip. Only raindrops falling on the car could be heard. When they reached home, what felt like 2 hours, they entered the small apartment. Then, out of the blue, Hisashi came and slapped Izuku on the cheek. Inko stood frozen in her place, in shock. That was the beginning of Izuku's new life, led by discrimination. When the kids at school found out that he was quirkless, they wouldn't stop laughing, teasing him, or stay away from him in disgust. A couple years later, when he became 6 and went to Aldra, the teachers couldn't bat an eye. His situation was normal to them. He was just a quirkless weakling. Just like Kacchan and Hisashi always said. Right before middle school, they started bullying him physically and not just with words. Izuku didn't dare to fight back. And even if he tried, the teachers would pretend like it's nothing, or punish him for things he didn't do. Katsuki went silent most times, and tried to ignore him when he could, unless the 𝗧𝗪𝗧 would expect him to press his charge. His dad beat him almost every day, with and without his fire-breathing quirk. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was how much it hurt. How normal it got. Normal. 5. His mom couldn't protect him when her husband got drunk. She went out so she wouldn't get in trouble with him, and left Izuku alone after school. But Izuku was smart, and he knew he needed a place to hide for when his dad gets angry. When he turned 7, he found the rooftop of the neighbor's building. He used it to hide and sometimes sleep in, so he built a small tent near the solar panels, half underneath them. It wasn't really a tent, just some piled blankets he found in the closet, which he connected with some lost clothespins. When he turned 9, his dad found the small camp, and threw everything he built off the roof, dragging him back home violently and kicking him, burning him, and punching him until he almost needed a hospital. But instead he got locked in his room for the weekend. Izuku's room was almost empty. That's why it was the most organized room in the entire house. The rest of it was bloody, burnt, or messy, with cans of beer randomly bent on every piece of furniture. That of course includes the floor. When Izuku passed to Aldra Middle School, Hisashi left. Just like so. The bullying never stopped, but Inko and Izuku really thought they could run a normal life at last. Inko found a job that's well-paying, and Izuku was getting ahead of his material in school. He already got to a high school level studying. He still kept his analysis notebooks updated every once in a while with heroes, mostly new heroes or underground heroes he hasn't heard of yet. At school, the kids kept bragging about how cool 𝗵𝗃𝗲's quirk is. And 𝗵𝗃𝗲 kept bragging about how he plans on going to UA, and be the first and only one from Aldra Middle School to be there. But at least there was a sense of normalcy in Izuku's life. Of course, that all changed after about a year when Inko's husband came back. She tried to kick him out. She didn't want the circle of suffering all over again. And she fought him until he got the nerves up his mind. He reached a hand to his back pocket and pulled out a gun. Izuku got home to find his house a crime scene. He felt tears well up his eyes, but he can't. He can't let his emotions take control now. He snuck inside, and when he passed the BLD puddle near the kitchen, his eyes caught a note on the fridge. I stopped paying to your school, so don't you even think about showing your face in there again. If your friends ask, tell them you went online, not that you even have any. The kids at school would have loved his dad. Maybe that could have made him popular. Izuku ignored the water refiling his eyes and cheeks, and took a backpack. He stuffed everything he could inside it. He would rather live in the streets than to go live with Hisashi alone, without school. And his mum, his only hope, his only reason to be alive, just disappeared. He didn't know what to feel. Emptiness, perhaps. But there was more than that. His emotions were tangled and unclear, so he stuffed them all inside, bottled them up, and left to find a place to stay for the night. Of course, he didn't have any other relatives, and going to the Bakugos was not an option. He didn't know a lot of his neighbors, and most of those who did know him already had him marked as the quirkless, useless kid. He wandered through the streets of Musutafu when he felt a weird goo wrapping him up. He couldn't breathe, and the liquid was suffocating him. Don't worry, kiddo, this won't be long, but you'll make a great skin suit. Relax, boy, you really are my hero. What does he mean? Izuku was stuck in his conscience. Was he going to die? Unable to move, breathe, or talk. He was only left with his thoughts, and even that soon got swallowed into the darkness. He woke up to the feeling of a slapping hand on his cheek. Softly, but still trying to wake him up. He sat up straightly, flinching away slightly from the touch. Are you all right, my boy? In front of him stood no other but the mighty All Might himself. He put a plastic bottle in his pocket that seemed to contain the sludge villain that took over him. All Might? He screeched in surprise. Yes, that's me. But if you'll excuse me, I must go now. He said. All right, but I have a question for you, if that's okay? Izuku tried. If you want my autograph, then you'll be pleased to find that I already signed your notebook, he said with his signature smile. He turns to go, but when he jumped, he seemed unpleased to see Midoriya clinging onto his leg. Can you let me go, because I really have to go? He demanded. If I let go now, I'll fall. Oh, right, of course. He landed them both on a roof. If you want an autograph for a friend, I'll be glad to give it to you. Thank you, but that's not what I wanted to ask. Izuku continued. I was just wondering is it possible for me to become a hero, even without a quirk? All Might took a second to consider the question. I'm afraid that no, you'll just be a burden and only get hurt. But try to be a police officer or something if you want to save people. They help a lot too. What? Now I must take my leave, my boy. All Might said something, and Izuku knows he should have listened, but the words felt like they drowned in cement, and then tried to come back to his mind. The moment All Might jumped away, with steams covering for some reason, Izuku's legs failed to hold his weight and he fell on his knees. He felt wetness on his face, but it doesn't matter to him anymore. Now almost every thread of hope and any sense of normalcy he had left had popped. He was truly alone. Izuku decided to spend the night on that roof since nobody came. He looked around and explored the place. There wasn't a lot. It was just him and the sky. He picked a spot near the stairwell of the building and emptied his bag. He looked through what he managed to sneak from his house. A few clothes like a sweater, extra sweatpants and others, a water bottle, some money he took from his dad's vault, his notebook and a pen. And they say the pen is mightier than the sword. Too, he looked at his money. He had enough for a few months, but he can go to his dad again to take some more. It won't count as stealing because he isn't paying for his school anymore, right? Izuku really hoped so. He put his stuff aside and went to buy himself some food. He had to eat after all. He turned to a grocery shop around the corner and found some water and cheap fast food that can survive without a refrigerator. When he reached the cashiers to pay, he saw a fabric face mask on sale. He stared at it. He could use something to make him remain unidentified. While he made his progress in the line, he snatched one of the masks to add to his payment. The cashier looked tired and didn't really care why a small child is buying groceries alone. As soon as he left the store with dull sound of bells as the door closed behind him, he opened the mask and put it on. He returned to the roof to hide his new stuff. When he finally got to the last staircase, he opened the door to the roof and threw the new stuff near his bag. Now what? This was obviously just a temporary thing. July's sun was burning. Soon he will be turning 12. How was it already July? It's just been a day alone like that, right? But no, it's been a week and a half. Izuku is about to become 12 years old without his dear mom. Unable to move to his next classes like every other normal second year in middle school. But at least he wasn't gonna be a bother to 𝗏𝗏 and the other teachers. One stupid Deku always in the way, right Bakugo? Still bothering to try and be a hero, you villain 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗺. You don't stand a chance. Kick to the rib, why won't you hope to get a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof? Katsuki's and the others' words from that time Izuku told them he was going to apply to UA too. He remembers all the mean nicknames they always called him. But that was the day Katsuki learned what swan dive means, and he just wanted to try it on someone, right? It just happened to be Izuku. So, for the first time in his short life he found himself unbeaten. This felt new to him. New but good. Like singing a song that's not off pitch. His first month outside of home was coming to an end, and it went more than all right. He managed to save more than 2/3 of his money, and right now he felt too restless to sleep, so he decided to take a walk around. He just wanted to shake off some energy he had, and meanwhile continue his search for a homeless shelter. He really didn't think of that sooner. Then he heard a BLD curdling scream. His reflexes, the ones he used to find villain fights to analyze, led him forward to a small alley. When he made the turn, what came into visual was awful. A kid younger than him, laying on the dirty ground, completely bruised, and a man hovering above him trying to protect him from something Izuku couldn't see, but he could sense. His mind was racing and he couldn't focus on a single thing. Immediately he scolded himself in his mind for just standing there and watching, so he got closer carefully. "Hey, excuse me sir, are you all right?" he tried. "Should I call the police?" The man looked at him, eyes full of horror. "Run," he whispered. The kid besides the man groaned and moved a bit, as a bad feeling twisted the air. The man's gaze moved from Izuku to something behind him. He turned around and scanned his surrounding for anything useful in combat, even before knowing what he was facing. In front of him stood a man, no, a mutant of half a man, half an owl. The kid behind him got up and the man hugged him close. Probably a father and son, since they both share the same bright flaming orange hair. Izuku backed away from the villain and froze. What is he going to do? He can't wait for a hero to come, because in the night it takes them longer to react. So he did what he knew best, analyze the villain in front of him. Quirk type. Mutation quirk, owl description by first look. Quirk can give user the properties of an owl. Obviously, specific user info. Said user have feather wings, huge claws for legs, night vision, probably, and higher-leveled stealth abilities night vision. Izuku's thoughts clicked with a finish plan, but the only question left was how will he start? "Kid, what do you think you're doing?" The owl person finally spoke. "Aren't you trying to get in the middle of my business?" His voice raises while his wings spread out in attempt to make himself look bigger and scarier. Izuku hates to admit it, but it frightened him till the depth of his soul. "No, not at all. I was just passing by." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth as well. His voice sounded a bit muffled by his face mask. He continued to search his environment nervously until he found what he was looking for to execute his plan. His eyes landed on a green sign with the writing exit, and a small light behind it gives it a little glow. Underneath it laid a crooked car's license plate. Then he started running towards it, but the owl guy grabbed him with his sharp claws by Izuku's shoulders before he could get anywhere far. He struggled for a moment as they took off to the night sky, but then managed to hit the claws strong enough to get them to release him. He dropped into a roll, or at least tried to, and failed miserably without letting the hit stop him from hurrying back to the license plate, grabbing it fast and smashing the green glass sign. Exit signs like these have small generators for times when the power runs out. He snatched the small light bulb out of place hoping for the best, and turned back to winged guy that stood right in front of him. Then, he raised himself onto his tippy toes and pushed the light straight to his eyes. Owls have very sensitive sight that has benefits to working in the night. But after shoving bright light this close, they become temporary blind. Izuku used that weakness to get a chance to win the fight. For the finish move, he waved the car's plate on the back of the owl's head and he fell down unconscious. Izuku was left huffing. He turned back to the shaking father and son. "Are you two okay? What's your name?" he asked and got closer. "Thank you, my name is 𝗂𝗵𝗃. The man smiled at him. His son looked terrible and terrified on the edge of crying. How Izuku knew the feeling. He crouched next to them and digged in his pocket for a few seconds. "Hey there, little man. What do you think? Dinosaurs or rockets?" He pulled out his hand holding 3 colorful band-aids. The boy shyly pointed at the single orange rocket's band-aid. Izuku put aside the rest and opened it up. "Wow, you're so brave. Now you're a true astronaut," he declared as he finished sticking the band-aid on the kid's largest scratch. His dad grinned sadly. "That's it, Mr. 𝗂𝗵𝗃. I think you should call the police now," Izuku mentioned and got up to leave. "Wait." He stopped and turned his head back. "What's your name?" Izuku really didn't know what to say. If he were to tell his real name, they would tell the cops, and the cops will find him since he is a witness and find out about his situation and take him to the foster care system. And that is never good for quirkless kids. Most of them don't come out alive. So Izuku had to compromise. "It doesn't matter." Then it turned and walked away. He stayed there for a little longer on a near fire escape, just to make sure the police arrive to arrest the villain before he wakes up and attacks them again, or maybe even somebody else. Izuku stepped through the streets as he returned to the roof he was staying on. He couldn't really focus on his surrounding, not that it's his fault of course. He was pretty much in shock. When he finally got back and sat down, he let his grip loose and noticed a piece of metal falling from his hand and crashing strong with the ground. Poor neighbors. He didn't even notice that the license plate was in his hands all the way back, and he never let it go until now. When he finally decided to go to sleep, the only thought that ran free in his head was, "Man, I really should find a place with a public sink to brush my teeth at." Then he got back to another good rest with night terrors hunting him. The next morning he woke up with dark circles under his eyes again, the feeling of his entire body aching from bruises and scratches all over, and a new motivation to find a sink. Also, he found out he could truly help people that need it. So he opened his notebook and analyzed the fight to figure out what he could have done better. Izuku's new favorite place was the library. He even made a list of advantages. 1. It's quiet. 2. He can study however he likes whenever he wants. 3. He can charge his phone. 4. Free Wi-Fi. 5. Access to public computers for research on heroes that act at night. 6. The librarian is nice. 7. He got a small job there. 3. So first off, yes, study. If you want to survive such modern world, you need education. Maybe he will even save enough money to pay for a high school, and if not, then find a cheap online one. Second, he can use a computer freely to get updated on villain fights in the news, or find cool heroes to be careful not to meet when he goes out at night. His favorite one so far is Eraserhead. He almost managed to stay completely off the net, but Izuku found a few videos of him in action, and God, the guy is the definition of a true hero. His movements are so accurate and he isn't even sweating. The guy is a whole new level, far better than All Might and his clumsy moves after the injury. Yes, he found out he's not an idiot. Not that he hates All Might or something, but you know what they say, never meet your heroes. Third, the librarian, a nice 36-year-old lady called Mrs. 𝗍𝗂𝗧𝗏, who gives him a cheap-paying job to help organize the place, is a very good-hearted person with a husband that works in the hero industry. They get enough money to live the life they want, so when she saw the kid that comes to study every day in front of her asking to help, she immediately offered him the job. She would rather see money go to the right people. Mrs. 𝗍𝗂𝗧𝗏 has long purple hair and dark yellow eyes. She always dresses nice, and her quirk, change the colors of objects, really helps with that. Sometimes she likes to use it on her own hair. After he finishes up organizing the books people returned, he sat on one of the computers and started looking for new posts on Eraserhead. After a while he gave in for the day and looked for new self-defense videos to practice later. He truly wants to become stronger, especially when he has no quirk to protect him. He scrolls around the internet and finds a few cool videos that work on techniques and some videos that work on muscles and power balance. Then he memorized the workout in his mind to train on his free time. When it got late, the library was closing up Mrs. Inazaki, so she gave him his daily payment and locked the doors. Then they waved goodbye and went each on their own way. It became like his daily ritual. The car's crooked license plate was still lying on the floor of the roof Izuku was staying on. He put his bag down and started training. He started it not too long ago, but he can feel how he gets stronger each week. Since that night fight with the Owl Man, he started to go out at midnight to go around the streets of musutafu, in the red light district, and help people as much as he can. With his hoodie and face mask on, no one recognized him. One night he caught a glimpse of Eraserhead jumping over the roofs, and he tried to chase him up the fire escape but got disappointed that he wasn't fast enough. So he added running and parkour to his daily exercises. He scribbled everything down on a notebook that used to purpose for hero analysis. Workout routine: push UPS, jogging, running up and down the stairwell, plank, extra core power. Parker. Right now he was capable of finishing 3 to 4 sets, and that was incredible progress since before he could barely make 2. After training all evening he could sleep better since he was tired a lot more. The next day when he opened the computer as usual, he noticed a notification about a recently uploaded video with the tag #underground_heroes__cool. Izuku excitedly opened the window and found a blurry-looking person on a shaky phone held up to take a picture and document the flurry moment. The man took off instantly and the video shut down. But Izuku recognized the crystal-clear white scarf around his collarbone. He took out a few papers with sketches from his pocket and added a few more arrows to the undetailed character drawn with a pen. He mumbled a bit when he updated his knowledge on the hero and his amazing capture weapon. Luckily for him, today was a calm day with only 4 to 5 visitors at a time. Hero name: Eraserhead. Civilian name: still unknown. Quirk: erase specific user info. Can erase someone's quirk by looking at the user. According to opinions online, and the possession of goggles that provide protection to the eyes. Specializes in close combat. Support items: capture weapons, scarf, knife, well hidden, extra. Scarf movements and control still unknown. He finished up early, got his payment, and left the walls of books behind. He got extra motivation today, and he's going to extract the best out of it. He is going to help so many people and make this world a safe place. Especially for those who are often forgotten by society and the limelight heroes. Plus about 2.5 years later. Izuku is now 14. 5. Eraserhead was having the most boring shift ever. Not that it's bad, it just means that the crime rate got lower, right? But no. When he returns to the police station to get himself a cup of coffee and perhaps chat with Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲, he finds villains and criminals in the amount of a normal night. What's going on? Is there a new underground hero around? He asked the detective, and pointed his mug at the full cells. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 peeked to where Izuku pointed and sighed. We believe there is someone trying to save people without a proper pro-hero license by witnesses, but we can never get a hold of him because he can somehow just run away every time. He wears a cheap face mask and a hood, so we have utterly nothing about him. Izuku can feel himself getting tired more and more with every word. We were thinking on getting some underground pros on the case to help. 𝗵𝗲𝗍 informs him. It actually took us a few good months to find his first appearance, but here it is, right in front of you. He waved a few papers from the file and slammed them on the desk. We were hoping that on his first times he might got sloppier and we could get a lead. He added with a sigh. Even though every other witness says he can't be recognized. But he is nice. Izuku dug through the words tiredly, without paying much attention, and put the pages back in the brown folder. Alright, let's go interview some witnesses. We do have to hope they remember it well enough, 'cause it was about 2 years ago. All 𝗧𝗵𝗲 could do was nod in agreement. The white paper said the names: Mr. Akamoto, 𝗵𝗃 Mr. Akamoto, Mitsuda family relation, father and son. Address: XXXXXXXXXXST. The red light district, musutafu. So Izuku and 𝗧𝗵𝗲 left to interrogate the two in hopes for a new lead on the case. Izuku was never sure how he managed to stay alone this long. 2 whole years haven't been easy. He had multiple financial expenses, more than he thought would be. Like a new toothbrush and toothpaste, or vegetables. He really missed the taste of carrots and bell peppers. One time he almost got kicked out of the roof, but he managed to hide just on time. He got a lot stronger, and his movements became sharper, more accurate and powerful. He filled up about 3 papers about Eraserhead by now, and he even found his last name from a conversation he had recorded with President Mike Aizawa. Even to All Might he wasn't such a fanboy. When it started snowing and raining in the winter, he just got inside the stairwell and slept near the door until it would stop. One time he desperately needed money for a cold medicine, so he went back to his old house and found the entire home in boxes. His dad was moving out. Izuku didn't know where, and that scared him. It terrified him that the only person he could go back to was now gone. Forever. He was truly alone. He snuck inside with a sneeze that blowed his cover if there was anyone there. He went straight up and searched his room. It was mostly empty, just like he left it. He searched for anything he could use and carry with him when he remembered. A memory from a few good years ago. He and 𝗏𝗏 got the same limited edition All Might card from pocket money they got from their moms. They were so happy. He had to hide the card someplace his dad won't find. He hurried back to his closet. It was always kind of old and empty, but it never really mattered to him. He opened the door and found 4 shelves and 3 drawers. He took the last one off its hinges and released a breath he didn't know he was holding as his eyes widened. The All Might card sat there, along with extra 5,000 yen, about $30. He didn't know what to spend it on at the time. He took the rest of his clothes with it and walked back to buy himself that stupid cold medicine. But right now, on his second summer, he was doing really good. Perhaps the best he had ever been. He even saw Mr. Akamaru and his son walking in the streets again on one of the days. The bright orange smiley duo looked so happy again. It made Izuku's heart flutter. He felt in control of his own life now. He felt safe as much as possible in the streets. Aizawa stared at the 2 fire orange ginger heads that he has tea with. Alongside him Detective 𝗧𝗏𝗏, noting down a few things. Before we begin, my name is Detective 𝗧𝗏𝗏 𝗵𝗃𝗲, and by law I'm obligated to mention that I have a lie detector quirk that allows me to know if you tell the truth or not. This is underground pro hero Eraserhead. Now, what do you remember about the incident 2.5 years ago? You were listed as victims of a villain attack by a guy with an owl quirk that attacked you and your son. And please do not spare any details. We were actually on our way back home from visiting Mitsuda's best friend. Mr. Akamaru looked at his son. When the guy decided to try and take my wallet. When I disagreed to give it to him, he started scratching us both with his claws and hitting us, and I froze. He lowered his head slightly at the words. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 gestured him that it's true, and he may continue. And then someone came. I think he was wearing a dark hoodie and a face mask, so I didn't really see his face. He sounded like a kid to me. He came in and fought the owl guy in a super smart way. Like, the kid just found an old license plate and took an exit lamp and temporarily blinded the guy so he could knock him out. Aizawa and 𝗧𝗏𝗏 shared a look. The detective looked sadly impressed, but Eraserhead was lost. A kid. Walking around the city at nights for 2 years. God knows maybe more. He scanned the house a bit when his eyes landed on a small picture wall of the 2. Except one of the frames didn't hold a photo. Instead, he saw a small orange band-aid with rockets on it. Maybe his first scratch. He thought to himself. Mr. Akamaru followed his gaze and smiled. The kid gave it to Mitsuda to encourage him to stop crying. It was very kind of him. Ever since he is his hero, so we kept it. Is it possible that his DNA will be on it? He asked 𝗧𝗏𝗏 quickly as the wind. It is possible, so we might take it to the lab just in case. And don't worry, you will get it back. He added. We need to go, but we'll keep in touch. Thank you for the tea. They all bowed and the 2 left. As they both sit silently in the police car, waiting for the light to turn green, Aizawa sipped his coffee. Where did he bring it from? The guy's a real mystery. So, a kid, huh? The evidence bag with the small band-aid in a frame shook with the car's engine. It was a frustrating moment for the both of them. On one side, the sneaky person that has been avoiding them for over 2 years is a kid. On the other, it's a kid. They need to get him off the streets. Who knows what makes him do this? Of course life couldn't leave him alone. I'm so sorry Izuku-kun, but the city hall wanted to buy the library, and my husband and I wanted to move out somewhere peaceful, so we sold it out. Mrs. Inazuki wore a nice puffy dress with some hero merchandise logo on it. Izuku couldn't bring himself into asking where she bought it. It's really fine. He smiled. I'm just sad that you're leaving. He really was, except that he was more concerned about his financial situation. Mrs. Inazuki grinned at him as well, but her smile seemed sad and didn't reach her eyes. Are you sure you're going to be all right? He nodded. Yeah, I already finished my school stuff, but I'm going to miss you. Tears welled up from too much stuff going on. He wasn't sure how to continue his life. Most places won't expect a small child like him. Especially not a quirkless burden like him. A moment later he found himself in a nice, warm hug. You're going to do just fine. Just trust yourself. She let go, and Izuku waved her goodbye for the day. And who knows, maybe forever. As usual to try and keep his life steady, he went out at night to see if anyone needs. Except that he just stumbled upon his favorite hero, Eraserhead. He turned quickly and started running away to try and vanish from his eyesight. Kid, he stopped. Hey Eraserhead, he said shakily. You know who I am? He sounded surprised. Izuku tried to back off, but Eraserhead caught a glimpse of that. Never mind that. What are you doing at this time outside? Izuku looked a bit lost in thoughts. I wanted to take a walk. I have a lot of energy in the night. He went for it. On the roof. Good. He hadn't even noticed he was on the roof up until now. It's a good lookout point. I wanted to see the stars, they're really pretty, and they calm me down. How about I accompany you on your way home? It's dangerous at this time and there are a lot of villains. Aizawa suggested nicely to not raise any suspicious thoughts in the boy. No thank you. Izuku spit out quickly and scrambled away as fast as he could. Aizawa ran after him, but when he looked over the edge of the fire escape, the kid was gone. A quirk maybe. He sighed deeply and left to update his case file. Izuku waited 5 minutes after Aizawa left until he got up and left the nearest staircase he found in a hurry. Not his worst interaction with people so far, but not his best either. He just hoped Eraserhead didn't think he was weird. He didn't even know he was quirkless yet, and Izuku don't want it to change. He can't bear to watch another hero break his heart again. Hey dude, why do you even exist? You just take air that can have better use than you. The kid from his class with the boulder quirk came up to him. That's because he is useless. The kid who can take out his eyes joined him and they laughed together. He finds himself behind the school's backyard, curled up against a wall. Kicked coming from all over his body. The kid with the wings quirk slammed his head on the hot, summer ground. He can still taste the BLD. The kid he was trying to protect from them ran away. That's good. Maybe he can call someone. Then he saw Bakugo, standing at the side with a blank stare Izuku couldn't read. Only the faded sounds of explosions coming from his direction, but he was never sure if the impact arrived or not. He stopped feeling. Then everything changes. His father's face, angry and drunk, watching him, yelling. His mom trying to get to him, but no help. She's out of reach. Izuku wakes up. It's almost winter and the rain started falling on his hair. He was starting to run out of money. He has to focus on buying food. He can refill his water bottle somewhere for free. He will find something. He has to. He got off the cold floor and went out to look for a job, which was a lot harder than he expected, especially without the network. Without computers or phone battery, it was basically pointless. So he had to go outside and interact with the real world. With no major success. He even lied about his age, but the problem was that nobody fell for it, or when they asked him about his quirk he got kicked out immediately. He went out at sunset and opened his notebook. He made a list of places that might take him in, but slowly every place he wrote down had a rough line covering it. It felt so frustrating. But right now he wasn't going to let all his strong work go to waste. He still had more people to save, more points to prove. He can't give up now, can he? So he decided to analyze a few limelight heroes to calm himself. What are you thinking about? He flinched at the sudden voice, and turned around to see the one and only Eraserhead. His timings are getting out of control. Finding a job. He answered without thinking. It was a total accident, and Izuku was going to make the best out of it. Why would you need a job? You should probably think more of school right now, don't you think? Izuku's mind raced non-stop, trying to come up with a believable excuse for I don't want anything that will work. He opened his mouth without knowing what's gonna come out of it, preparing for the worst. Then, like someone heard his prayers, they heard a loud boom. And a smoke mushroom filled the air. Izuku jumped a bit in his place and started running towards it. He could have sworn he heard Izuku cursing under his breath while catching up on him. As they arrived, a whole building was on fire, and about 5 villains destroying everything in their path to 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Many people were injured and spread around the place. Izuku caught a glimpse of the kid parkouring his way down to help some people, while he opened the comm link to call for backup forces. Everyone available, this is Eraserhead requesting for backup. I need all hands on deck. Copy that, Eraser. We're on our way. The heroes were dropping in slowly, depending on how close they were to the area. Some of them were half in gear, half in civilian clothes, after finishing their shifts for the day. Eraserhead. Someone above him called and landed beside him. 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Good to see you after your shift again. He mumbled. I have to agree, but last time was on better circumstances. What's the status? His red feathers scouting and evaluating the damage. 5 villains armed with explosives. Injured all over the place, and a building caught fire. Hawks passed the report in the hero-secured network, and they both headed to fight the villains. Passing by injured people, Izuku noticed that more than half of them were already patched up, which was really fast. But the funny thing is that the paramedics haven't arrived yet. Izuku scanned the destruction zone. He pulled out a few bandages he kept for emergencies, and ran to a lady with gashes all over her hands. She looked in pain, and on the brink of breaking down. He kneeled next to her. Excuse me, miss, do you need help? She nodded, shaking. He noticed she was starting to hyperventilate. What's your name? She sent him one look, and put her arm in front of him as he showed her the rolls of bandages. My name is 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Is it going to started cleaning her arm and wrapping it up to get the bleeding to stop? All right, 𝗵𝗃𝗃, try to focus on things you can smell and hear. For example, you can hear me, right? He tried to get her to calm down, and after he made sure he was fine, he sent her to where the paramedics are supposed to arrive and went to help other people. He helped a small family that were caught up in the explosion, a dog owner and their dog, and a few more, but he ran out of first aid supplies. He will just take some more when the ambulances will arrive. He went up one of the roofs for a lookout point and realized that the explosion had blocked all the roads, and it's going to take a while for the ambulance and fire department to enter the fire zone. So he jumped down and ran inside the flaming building. Like the lucky idiot he is, he had his face mask on to filter some of the thick smoke filling the air. Is there anyone inside? He yelled. There was nothing but the sound of the sparkles of the fire, and some furniture lighting up and collapsing on the floor. Then a soft, I'm up here. He rushed up the stairs, slowly losing his breath from all the 𝗃𝗃. He bustled around the second floor, lifting everything he could, desperately searching for the source of the voice. Meanwhile, Eraserhead was fighting the villains alongside with Hawks, Rocklock, Present Mike, and 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. Also more heroes like Majestic and Ingenium focused more on evacuation of the area. The guy he was targeting and going after was a bit clumsy, and he was relying too much on his quirk, which wasn't a huge contribution to combat. Goods, he thought as he cuffed the man, they might be getting out of this attack with minimal damage. Unfortunately, he spoke too soon. A strong fire fist came from behind the villain who was up against Hawks, and sent him flying, or more accurate, free falling on the hot flaming building. The wall crumbled at the hit, and the poor villain got knocked out strong, dropping back to the floor with a few cement pieces. Endeavor? What on earth were you thinking? I agree. With all the respect, it was very illogical and dangerous. Scolding could be heard from all over the place. Izuku couldn't help but nod in agreement. He hated the guy. So rash and violent. Present Mike joined him after handing the tied-up villain to the police. I can't believe I'm saying this, but you're right. Izuku sighed tearfully. Then he remembered that the kid was still here too, and he could be anywhere. Even trapped in the fire. He rushed towards the building, Mike behind him. Show you to wait. Where are you going? Is it because you're too embarrassed to admit that I'm right? He tried to lighten up the mood. Remember that vigilant I told you about over dinner a few weeks ago? When I just found out he was a kid. He's still here too. Izuku was panicking. The person who called him here can be everywhere. They could be stuck, unconscious, or even he really hoped they were still alive. His inner old classmates were screaming at him to give up, while his mind never stopped believing. He felt the heat invading his hoodie and the nerves on his skin burning in pain. He looked into the last room of the floor. If someone got stuck here during the explosion, now is the only chance to get them out. The moment he stepped into the room, his eyes burnt, but he kept them open anyway. A massive amount of fire caught on a room full of wooden furniture, and in the middle of the room there was a man. He was laying on the floor, whispering, "Help me." So Izuku got inside, adrenaline blocking away the pain. He carefully lifted the man, when he heard a crash, and the wall crumbled inside and outside. Skipping over cement rocks, he took the man down the stairs. Huffing and craving for oxygen, he reached back to the entrance, only to be welcomed by Eraserhead and present Mike with a panicked expression. They were just going to get inside. Izuku wonders why. Were there any other people that he missed? He really hoped not. "Kid, are you all right?" "Wow, little listener, good job." It was real. He wasn't delusional because of his lack of oxygen. He was just talking with two pro heroes. 𝗵𝗃 present. Ario friends with Eraserhead. He blurted out. Mike smiled as Eraserhead took the man out of his hands. "Oh, slow down there, listener. First let's make sure you're okay. And get away from the building because it can collapse any moment." Izuku caught his breath and collected himself. "I'm fine, but what if there are more people trapped inside?" he asked, holding himself not to scratch an itchy burn. "Don't worry, the fire department will handle it." It made the kid's shoulders slump a bit in relief, but he couldn't help but think, what if they won't? It will all be his fault. "How about we check you out for injuries first?" Aizawa reminded them. "I'm all good, thank you, gotta go." He ran and went past the ambulances to snatch a few bandages and burn cream. He can do it on his own. What do I need to do to get him off the streets? Shoyuta and Yamada were sitting on the same roof that the kids sat on when they heard the explosion. The hero duo were skimming through the abandoned notebook. The kid was real smart and talented, and he has potential. "It will happen," promised him Yamada. "He already trusts you." I bet he didn't have that for a long time. How is he always right? Izuku ran out of money. He was at the corner grocery store, buying his last cup of instant noodles. He had just about enough money, and the change was so little so he was going to leave it as tip gladly. It was like a goodbye gift of some sort. The nice weather this morning gave a good feeling. Mr. Ragoku, the owner of the shop, was very kind, and Izuku felt sorry for not being able to support him and buy there anymore. "You sure do love these noodles, youngling. Are you aware these are not healthy for such growing man like yourself?" He slated him. "I know, Mr. Ragoku," he smiled from under his mask. After throwing the few coins to the tip, he headed to the exit, waving goodbye. Except then he saw someone trying to sneak away without paying. "Excuse me, sir, when you take food you need to pay. This is just how bartering works." He came to stop him, when the guy pulled a gun out of his skin. Of course he was prepared. Maybe his quirk let him have storage in his body. Izuku wondered how it worked. "Everyone! On the ground!" He yelled and loaded a bullet. This day was just getting better. A few screams could be heard. The guy's hand was shaking. He was clearly new to holding a weapon. A few people outside were already calling the police, or floundering what to do. The armed robber looked like he was having doubts with himself whether to shoot or run away. That, Izuku thought, could result in neither property damage nor someone getting hurt in or outside the shop. Both options are bad. The best thing to do was to neutralize the guy. And fast. The man slowly backed away. He was going to escape. Izuku's body moved on its own, and he jumped on the man, reaching his grasp to the gun. The man was tackled and the gun flew out of his hold, so Izuku pushed it away from him quickly. The cops just entered and cuffed the man, allowing Izuku to get back up again and check on the people. "Mr. Ragoku, are all right?" He went to help him up from the floor. That was some tackle right there, youngling. He smiled at him. Izuku rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. I'm always happy to help, sir. He started leaving while making sure his noodles cup is still on him, but when he got it out of his bag it was a bit squished. Oh youngling, let me replace that for ya, the kind man offered. It's really fine, Mr. Rigoku. He tried to assure him. Then at least take something else, it's the least I can do to thank you. Izuku couldn't bargain, so he swooped a small packet of Doritos and broke off. Now all he had to do was survive over a cheap pack of Doritos. Eraserhead was grading some papers when the Hero Network pinged with an alert of a villain attack at a corner store in his area. It wasn't his shift, so he opened the news to see that the criminal was neutralized by a kid wearing a mask. A later interview with the shop owner showed that the kid was just another regular customer and a very kind and helpful young man. Aizawa would recognize that behavior from over miles. You guessed it. He went to talk to the store owner. He opened his phone. After 3 rings the call got picked up. Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 speaking, what can I do for you? Oh good, it's Eraserhead. Meet me at the corner store that got attacked a few hours ago. You might get a lead on the kid. I'm on my way. The phone made the sound signaling that the call has ended. The papers can wait. He might have someone who knows the kid personally and can give him a name at best, or spatial scar at worst. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 met him inside. Having a police car gets advantages on the road. They headed towards the counter. Hello sir, how are you today? My name is Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃, and this is Pro Hero Eraserhead. We're here to ask you a couple of questions about the kid from the incident earlier. Also, I must declare that my quirk lie detector makes me know if you tell the truth or lie. He started. The man nodded along. Is it because he attacked the guy? Because he didn't. He only did this because he saw a dangerous situation and was doing this out of self-protection. Well, more others' protection. He went defensive. No, let's start at the easy stuff. Your name is Rigoku Yashido, correct? Yes. True. Do you know the kid's name? No. True. Then how do you know him? Silence. Mr. Rigoku, we aren't going to put him in jail. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 promised him. That's correct. Apparently this kid had been walking around the streets at night for a couple years, trying to help people. Like a hero, but illegally. We call it a vigilante. We just hope to get him back on track for a normal life, perhaps even help him become a hero. Eraserhead explained as much as he could. Well, that's relieving, but I still don't know his name. I wasn't lying before. Rigoku continued. We know, said 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃. But is there anything else you know about him? Hair color, special scar, quirk, something weird he talks about, a family, anything? He thought for a moment. I believe I saw a few green hairs falling on his face once. If that helps, he keeps coming to me to buy these cheap noodle cups, or water, and some of the times leaves a tip. Oh, that youngling has a heart of gold. He sighed. The detective and the pro nodded. Thank you so much, Mr. Rigoku. You have been true help. He smiled. Come again soon. The door opened with a small bell and shut after them. Eraserhead was patrolling almost 2 weeks later when he felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Hello. Eraser. It's Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃. I suggest you start heading to the station. We got the DNA autopsy back. You might want to take a look at it. The DNA test. Does that mean that they had the kid's identity? All right, I'm on my way. He rushed to the police station and met with the detective standing outside his office waiting for him with a file. That took long enough. True, but it makes sense since most of the DNA belongs to Mr. Akamaru's son, so it took a while to find the second DNA sample. Aizawa grabbed the file and opened it. Name, Midoriya Izuku 14 birthday, July 15 address, XXXXXXXXX, unupdated, quirk, none, quirkless. Finally. We sent a few officers to the address written here, but the house was sold a few years ago. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 noted. Eraserhead nodded. Most of the information was shocking on its own. You try to find his guardians. I'll talk to him when I see him on my patrol. I will also be bringing this to Principal Nizu, see maybe he can offer him a place at UA. He left. Socializing was not his best part. Hunger crawled up Izuku's body. He hasn't eaten in a week and a half, and his last meal wasn't a really full one. We all know it was a small pack of Doritos. By an article he read online, humans are able to survive 3 weeks without food. Every day right now he was looking for a job, even a part-time one. But people won't hire a 14-year-old kid, or 15. He tried rounding it up, but they didn't believe him. He was ignoring a small tummy ache as he left another criminal to the police when he spotted Eraserhead heading his way. He climbed up one of the roofs to meet him. He could really use a distraction now. "What's up, Eraserhead?" He just stared back at him, like he had something to say, but was thinking if he should or how. He sighed and went for it. "Kid, listen, I'm gonna say something, but I need you to not run away. And don't worry, we won't arrest you." "Not worrying at all." Izuku attempted to lighten up the mood. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. "Sorry, I'll try. You're stressing me out." "Good." Somi and Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 went to visit a few people you saved to try and get some info on you. Perhaps you remember an orange-haired family. Mr. Akamaru and his son. He completed. The pro looked a bit surprised. "Yeah. Apparently the boy really looks up to you, so he kept the band-aid you gave him." Izuku's eyes widened. What he felt was pure joy, that someone believes in him and admires him. "Shortly we got lucky. There was a DNA of yours on that band-aid. Maybe now can you tell me a bit about yourself, Midoriya Izuku?" He was caught off guard. He got caught. He was also panicking for a bit no reason. He was specifically told he wasn't going to jail. He took a deep breath. That was predictable. Nice move, Aizawa. Name for name, queen for queen. Eraserhead didn't look bothered by the kid calling him by his name, because he already knew. He pulled out a notebook and shoved it into Izuku's hands. "You forgot this. President Mike and I were really impressed by your work. I wanted to show it to 𝗍𝗬 too, but Mike said we needed your permission first." 𝗍𝗬 as in principal of UA. "No way. This is just me noting stuff down so I won't forget it. It's not really anything special. Besides, if you already know who I am, you probably know that I'm Quirkless. So, he will hate me the moment he hears that." He was frustrated. "But I don't hate you right now," Eraserhead pointed out. Izuku was stumped, stunned and surprised. This was the first time someone who knew looked at him beyond his quirklessness. Fugid. It was also strong to believe. But Aizawa was desperate to show the kid that he can be a hero, and more, he is an equal human being just like the rest. "You are strong and smart, and you use that to help people. That's what a true hero does. Except that if you give me permission to show your analysis to 𝗍𝗬, we can find a way to make it legal." He sounded confident in his words. "You still didn't answer my question. Why don't you hate me? I'm Quirkless." He pressed with disbelief. "Because it doesn't matter to me. Even if you had a super strong quirk, I would have done the same." "Got it, problem child." Izuku noted. "And call me Izuku." Suddenly he felt dizziness take over, and he swayed a little. Eraserhead caught it and ran to help him stabilize. "Are you okay?" He checked him quickly for injuries or any signs of sickness, and pressed his finger to see how long it takes for the BLD to come back. "Let's just say it took long enough." "Kid, you're extremely dehydrated," he said and took out a bottle of water. "Oh no, it's fine, Eraserhead. It's not the water, it's just the food." He tried to get him off his back, but his own claim went against him. What? That's worse. When was the last time you ate?" Aizawa attacked him. Izuku fiddled with his fingers, counting the days. "About a week." "A week? No, wait, a week and a half." "A week and a half?" Izuku nodded, clueless about the worry spreading in the hero's heart. His vision darkened around the edges, and he felt like he was about to be sick, except he had nothing to throw up. "Izuku, just focus on me for now, okay?" The words started swirling, and his stomach hurt like a ride to hell and back. He passed out. Izuku woke up. He looked around the white room, and the first thing that catched his eye is an obnoxious yellow sleeping bag. He was laying in a hospital bed, with weird tubes connected to him and stuff. His eyes got used to the room very quickly. He looked around. It was mostly empty, with a soft morning light straining through the windows. "How are you doing, problem child?" A voice peeked from the sleeping bag. Eraserhead. Yeah, kid, you really scared me back there. He said. A nurse entered the room and checked on him. How do you feel, Izuku? She asked with a soft grin. Fine. Been better. He smiled back. Honestly, he felt like his stomach got ran over by a truck, and he was still slightly lightheaded. He spotted his personal file on the nightstand and picked it up. He skimmed through the words until he found what he was looking for. They also didn't know where his dad was. He stared at the paper. What was going to happen? Your father actually signed a contract releasing you off his care. You don't have an official guardian. Even if he wouldn't have done that, we would try to get you away from him. The guy escaped jail after murdering your mom. Aizawa said. Oh, yeah. There was a bit of silence as the nurse walked out. Anyways, Eraserhead got up. I should get going, and you're supposed to try to eat something. I'll come back later with Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 to ask you some questions. He held the yellow puffy sleeping bag and headed to the door. And thank you. Izuku said. What for? Everything. Nizu poured himself a cup of tea when he heard a knock on his office door. Come in. Eraserhead opened the door and stepped inside. Aizawa. For what do I have the honor? You usually don't come here unless it's serious. He smiled and lifted one paw. Remember the vigilante I told you about that I want to get into UA? I brought you a piece of his work. He passed a notebook to Nizu, and he started reading it. Interesting. Have you tried to give him an IQ test of sort? He asked with an evil grin. No, we thought you might want to do it. Eraserhead answered tiredly. He's currently at the hospital, so if you want to talk to him, you know where to find me. Have a good day. He got up, took the notebook from across the table, and left Nizu to his mischievous ideas. Hey, I got you your notebook back. Aizawa opened the door to Izuku's room. Thanks. He heard the kid say, but his voice sounded a bit muffled. He wondered why, and when he looked down at the bed, he found him under the thin blanket, curled on himself and hugging his belly. What's up? Eraserhead wasn't the most amazing person with kids, but he was trying his best. Izuku pulled down the covers to reveal his freckled face. I'm okay. You sure? He could swear the kid's face got paler. He got lost in thoughts for a few seconds. Tears sparkled in his eyes, but haven't trickled down yet. It's just a tummy ache. The nice nurse said it will go away. He mumbled. Eraserhead crouched in front of his bed. I don't doubt it, but what are you truly thinking of right now? He asked. Izuku looked him in the eyes. I can't go to the foster care system. I'm quirkless. Everyone will just eat me up alive unless I end up dead. He started to panic, and he felt like he needed more air, so he breathed faster, but every inhale hurt his tummy, and it hurt, it's painful, and everything was fuzzy and cold and distant, but then it stopped. The weight of a warm hand rested on his shoulder. Don't worry, Izuku, it's going to be okay. We have a plan. He took a deep breath. And enough. He was so tired. But he thought, who's we? He ended up only saying the second half of the sentence aloud, but Aizawa seemed to understand. Just then, the door opened without a knock. Hello. Midoriya Izuku. It's Minazu. The principal of UA. Izuku cut him. I'm sorry. I got excited. It's fairly probable and completely fine. How are you? He spread his paws up. Aizawa could swear he was just waiting outside for the right timings. Nizu is here to tell you something, right? He sent the rat in question a glare that could cause a chill run up anyone else's spine. Yes. We came here to offer you a spot in UA's hero course. Since you are underage and you didn't use a quirk on your vigilantism, it can count as self-defense. So I pulled some strings, and now your time in school can legally be your vigilante rehab program. I can't do that. You said it yourself, I'm quirkless. I can't be a hero. And I don't have a parent to pay for it or dash. He was stressed, so he was rambling, but none of the other two in the room looked worried about the same things. Kid, you already are a hero. Eraserhead moved his hand to ruffle his hair. What are you talking about? Izuku looked confused, and suddenly his stomach wasn't causing so much pain. He used that opportunity to try and eat a bit of vegetables from the food tray he got. Izuku, you save people. That's why you went outside all those nights and trained. All we're asking is for you to do it legally. Was Eraserhead serious? If he brought 𝗍𝗳𝗓, it must mean they somehow found a way to bypass the need of a guardian. Then can I take the entrance exam? Why? Aizawa asked curiously. So I won't be different from anyone else. Izuku said, but Eraserhead felt like it wasn't the full truth. Makes sense, we can put you in the recommendation exam too if you want, but I still don't see the point. 𝗍𝗳𝗓 exclaimed, seeing the same thing and trying to find what it was. I want to know that I got this place because I worked strong just like everyone else. The kid truly didn't believe he deserves this. If I won't pass, then I'll know I need to work harder. He added. Aizawa sighed. Fine. It's in a bit less than a month. If there's anything else you need to know, I'll tell you. Also, it's another reason to make sure you know all the study material. Thank you. Izuku finished his food slowly, and his bellyache weakened. There was silence when a different nurse came in to check Izuku and replace his infusion. It's like a constant needle in your vein, so the doctors won't have to stab you every single time. Sometimes they connect to a bag of liquids so the body stays hydrated, so that's what he has. He thanked her, and she left. 𝗍𝗳𝗓 grinned. One last thing. Since you already know, and as you've mentioned you don't have a parent or a guardian, therefore you will be staying at the UA dorms. You will be under the supervision of the pro heroes. One of them has volunteered to take you under their custody with an emergency foster license. Izuku was in shock. He hugged his knees tight. Are you sure about it? I don't want you going through all that trouble just for me, of course. I am honored to help you become a hero. Izuku moved to sit up on his bed, and sat on his heels and bowed. Thank you so much, he said. As he got up, there was another knock on the door, and it opened. Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃, come in. Aizawa sighed. 𝗍𝗳𝗓 got up to leave. I guess that will be all about me for today. See you later, Midoriya-kun. He waved his paw and left. The detective took his place. How are you, kiddo? I'm 𝗧𝗵𝗄𝗃 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝗧, and I am the detective assigned to your case. I'm here to ask you a few questions about your life and the last few years. Sounds about right. Izuku nodded. Good. I'm also committed to tell you I have a lie detector quirk, so I can tell if you lie or tell the truth. Now let's begin. Where did you live the past few years? A roof no one came up to on xxxxxxxxx. My stuff are still there. He remembered. Don't worry, we'll send someone to get it. Why did you end up on the streets? Izuku consulted with himself, but figured he had no way of getting lower than he already is, so he might as well tell the truth. My mom died, and there's no way I could stay with my dad. He would just beat me up every day. Especially without school. And how did you get food and resources? I found a small job at the library, but it got shut down, so I ran out of money. That's why I ended up here. One in total, it was 20 minutes of answering questions about his life, just so they could get a picture of what he has been through. Alright, that will be all for today. Thank you so much for your time, Midoriya-kun. Your stuff will be brought tomorrow, he said and stretched out. Okay, thank you very much. He left with Eraserhead, since they both have work to do. Izuku was left to chat with the nurses, that gave him some papers and a pencil. He wrote down a few thoughts on some Limelight heroes, and scribbled something for fun, but let's say he is no artist. But he finally got to eat normal food. If hospital food can count as normal. Still better than cold water instant noodles. Across the hall he could hear one of the patients got a surprise visit. He was happy for them, but he was sad because he missed his mom. He never really had any friends except for 𝗏𝗏, but that changed too. He felt lonely. He went on walks and after a few days on runs too. He ran as fast as he could to escape his worries. Outside he found another kid that stayed there, and he taught Izuku soccer. So they played until it got dark. When he returned, he looked through his notebook. His analysis wasn't really special. He couldn't see what 𝗍𝗳𝗓 and Eraserhead saw about him. He was just a quirkless kid. So he continued to practice for the entrance exam. He wasn't going to be left behind. But of course the entrance exam wasn't all about power. It had the educational part. Izuku borrowed a few books from the hospital's small library and looked at what was listed on his grade. He flipped the pages until he got to the right material. He stared at the questions. This was too easy. Is it possible that the study he did in the library finally paid off? So he gave himself a break and went to sleep. It was the day. The UA entrance exam day. He came early alongside Izuku and went to the waiting area. He was nervous, but he didn't know why. This test isn't about whether he gets into UA or not. It was about proving himself. He put his hands in the hoodie Izuku got him to replace the old, ripped one. It was dark green colored and a bit big on him, but he really liked it. Slowly more and more students joined, and suddenly they all entered the main auditorium. Are y'all ready? It was present mic man. Izuku could go on rambling on him all day. His pros and cons, his quirk and best moves. But he had to pay attention. He needed to. You will have to destroy as many robots as you can. There are 4 types of robots, each with different points changing from 1 to 3. The presentation behind him showed only 3 out of the 4. Excuse me, but there are 4 robots and you only mention 3. If this is a mistake, then it is very disrespectful and a shame to UA. A boy with blue hair and glasses spoke up. That's right, listener. The 4th type is a 0-pointer. I suggest you try to avoid it if you can. Present Mike avoided the tense formality of the kid. But first, you have a written exam. Split up to your pre-decided rooms. He yelled. Izuku went to his assigned desk, and the test paper was put in front of each student. The teacher in charge was 𝗵𝗃𝗲. You may begin the test. Izuku opened the first page. He filled everything out quickly and detailed his explanations as much as he could. His palm felt sweaty under his grip on the borrowed pen. He was writing and monig page after page, until when he flipped the next paper over he saw, the end, good luck. Wait, did he miss a few questions? He went back and checked. Every white piece of paper was filled with his messy handwriting. He waited in his seat, going through his answers quietly. 15 minutes after 𝗵𝗃𝗲 called for everyone to drop the pens and pencils, and the tests were passed forward. Next you have the practical exam, so go to your assigned areas. There are different training grounds in the facility, and there are signs to guide you. Izuku was told he was supposed to look for ground beta. He stared at the huge buildings of the school. Was he truly going to learn here? Live here? Then he didn't look at where he was going, and tripped on something. Maybe I won't, he thought. Then he just stopped falling. Are you okay? Sorry for using my quirk on you. A girl with brown hair stood beside him. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just really clumsy, your quirk is so cool. He was still floating. She released him. Well, I guess good luck. She encouraged him. Thanks, good luck to you too. He tried. She got swallowed among the other kids near the enormous gate. But Present Mike was yelling at them to go, and there is no countdown in real life, but Izuku was too busy trying to understand what he can do against monstrous robots. He ran in with everyone. He entered into a fake city, destruction everywhere, and robots all over the place. He ran to one of them, only to see it get demolished before he got to it. Sorry man, I got it first. A kid passed him, running to get more. Izuku ran another direction, getting to a 3-pointer. Without too much thinking, he jumped on one of his legs and climbed up. He can scold himself later for whatever CRP he is going to do. He ripped open the control panel and tore apart the wires. The robot shut down and dropped dead. He got points. But it took him too long, he will never have time to get enough. So he ran and searched for another 3-pointer, but no use. The last ones are getting destroyed at the moment. So he ran to a 2-pointer and used the same way to get it down. He had 3 minutes left. He moved around, looking for bots to take down, but all he finds is metal ruins and smoking leftovers. A minute left was announced, and a shake went through the ground. The 0-pointer came out. It was gigantic. What was he thinking? Gigantic is not a word. Like a tank, but 20 times larger. It was crushing everything on its way, and it gave Izuku chills. Everyone ran away, just like Mike advised. He started too. No point staying if there are no points. He turned around. The nice girl from earlier was there, her foot stuck under a wreck of cement. Someone help, please. Zero thinking made, he ran towards her, grabbing a big rusty iron rod on his way. He pushed it in the robot's wheels, and scrambled to help take off the concrete chunk off the girl. She got up carefully, when the robot made a strange noise, and sparks flew as it stopped moving. She started to back off a bit. Izuku followed slowly as well. "We should get away. It can still short-circuit and 𝗳𝗗𝗃𝗧𝗔𝗍𝗃. The boom." He couldn't finish the sentence. He sent a hand to reach the girl when he found himself flat out on the floor. The explosion he expected. He saw it coming. That was time. He was such a failure. Izuku was going to need to work a lot harder now, just to prove he is worth it. That he deserves the praise. Not living in the streets really put his guard down. Izuku got up. Parts of the robot were all over the place. "I wasted all my time, I need to work harder. I only got 5 points," he mumbled to himself. He went to the girl. "Are you alright?" She looked nauseous, but overall okay. "Yeah. I'm fine." She smiled at him. Recovery girl headed their way, giving and gummy candy to everyone. "You are all reckless young people." Not thinking anymore, she was indignant. She him, and then the nice girl, and gave them both candy. Everyone started leaving home. Had time to unpack his bag, and now his room looks extra empty, with everything organized in a closet. But now the first day of school finally came. He was walking with absolute zero confidence to his class. Aizawa already told him that he will be his teacher, so he had nothing to worry about, right? But still, something felt awfully wrong. When he got to the door, he saw the same brown hair from the entrance exam. It's you. I didn't get to thank you for what happened in the exam. I'm Uraraka Ochako. You were so cool. Like you totally knew what you were doing." She moved her finger up and down with enthusiasm. "Thanks. But it really was nothing. If anything, I should thank you for offering me points. You really didn't have to," he said with a smile. They both got inside, but Izuku froze in his place the moment he heard it. Two familiar voices arguing. One was the same strict blue-haired boy from the exam. He waved his arm up and down at the other, scolding him for putting his legs on the table. The other one, the blonde head, turned at him the moment he froze in his place. His only childhood friend or bully or both. Kacchin, aka Bakugo Katsuki. Deku. Kacchin. Izuku was ashamed. He should have seen it coming. Bakugo always bragged about going to UA, and he knew he was going to make it. "Where the F were you all this time, huh?" he yelled, face full of terror combined with surprise. He walked to him, stopping right in front of him. I tried to draw his expression in the pic above. What do you mean?" Izuku backed off. "You know what I'm talking about. You disappearing one day, and not showing up to school ever after." His palms sparkled with the familiar sound of caramel-scented explosions. It made Izuku flinch and unconsciously shrink himself. "Now tell me, where were you, and how the hell did you get in here?" he growled. Izuku scanned his surrounding, nervous like a cornered animal. At the edge of his sight, he spotted Eraserhead's yellow sleeping bag. "We'll talk later," he whispered to Katsuki and went past him, dropping to his seat. Said boy frowned and stomped to his desk behind Izuku. A few seconds later, the entire class went silent. "It took you all too long to notice me." The pro hero got up. "I'm Aizawa Shoyuta, your homeroom teacher this year. Now go get changed and we'll meet outside for a quirk assessment test." Izuku felt nauseous, and for the first time in a while he had something inside of him to throw up. He was quirkless. How on earth was he supposed to assess the quirk that he doesn't have? The workout uniform showed a bit of his scars from the bullying and street fights. He could feel stares shooting at him like bullets, and shamefully disappearing fast. He tried his best to ignore them, and the scary aura Katsuki gave off, giving his all in concentration on the lesson. "You will try your hardest in these tests. Bakugo, you scored the most in the entrance exam. What was your ball throw score in middle school?" Eraserhead turned towards the blonde. 67 meters, he grunted. Izuku can see it. He remembers him always being the best in everything, so he wasn't surprised. "Okay then, now try your best with your quirk." He gave him the ball. Bakugo threw the ball with a war call of "die." Aizawa showed everyone the device that counts the distance. 753 meters. Now everyone else do the same for the rest of your tests. Whoever gets the lowest ranking will be expelled. Welcome to UA. He concluded, and Izuku spotted a small look on his face. A smartass look, like he isn't telling them something. What was that supposed to mean? Is the test something more than it's presented? Is he not going to expel anyone? Because that would be calming since he has no quirk to help him in these tests. Worried and determined faces were scattered all over as the students got to work. It went quite well, and no one questioned why he wasn't using a quirk. Maybe they thought he had a mental quirk. That's what he thought the purple-haired kid had at least, so it only makes sense. What made Izuku confirm his theories was that he made the blue-haired dude push him too at the running test. Perhaps some type of brainwashing quirk. Much more to explore and analyze for him. Luckily, he got stronger over his time on the streets. So when Aizawa showed everyone the scoreboard, he was happy to see that he wasn't last. After him on the ranks was the name, Hagakure Toru, the girl with the invisibility quirk. It can't physically affect her or her environment, therefore her scores were lower than him. She will need to work on it harder. What was even more surprising was that he almost got a tie with the next one. The purple-haired kid Shinso Hitoshi, who got to where he is thanks to his brainwashed classmates, and only of the tasks that were with other students. On the first place was, of course, Katsuki. He must have released all his anger of Izuku ghosting him on this. He should be happy standing in the first place with no one surpassing him. And yet, a sour expression was clinging tightly on his face. Aizawa gave everyone a moment to take in the results. They were all sure that if Hagakure was visible, she would look like she is on the edge of crying. No one is actually getting expelled. It was just a logical ruse to make you all try your best. Eraserhead said with a smirk. So many ounces of relief were released to the air. The rest of the day went quickly. Uraraka showed Izuku Ida Tenya, who was the next day in the homeroom lesson chosen to be class president. Izuku believes it was a smart choice. He is responsible and confident in his own actions. Aizawa every once in a while sent him or Bakugo a glare. He must have noticed there was something between the two of his students. It wasn't strong to miss. They also kept glancing at each other. The blonde was always walking with a nice red-haired kid called Kirishima Ijiro and his friends. Izuku had a small talk with him already, and found out he enjoys talking about heroes with him, and hear his analysis. He really thought it was interesting. But he was too scared to walk back to him, since he was too close to Bakugo. Izuku didn't want to take the risk, but it was unavoidable and he knew it. He also owed this explanation to him, so he can't let himself escape from it. Not again. On the last break of the second day of school, Katsuki walked up to him. "We need to talk." Bakugo led Izuku to an empty classroom and closed the door. "I want answers. Stop avoiding me." Izuku couldn't take apart the look on his face. He started fidgeting nervously with his fingers, weight from leg to leg. He did tell him he will talk to him later, but he didn't say when. Smartass, he hoped to reschedule it for a long time from now. But of course life were never the way he wished for. "I know. What do you want to hear?" Izuku sat down on one of the chairs. "The truth," Katsuki stated, and leaned on one of the close desks. "I want to know what happened when you were gone, and how did you get here?" The green-haired had an internal debate about what to say and what not to. "Fine, I guess. When my mom died, my dad kind of kicked me out. He wasn't the best, so it wasn't really a problem. But he also stopped paying for school, so Izuku let out a shaky smile. Bakugo was furious. Why didn't he say anything? But he didn't want to push him, so he, against half of his will, remained silent. Izuku was stressed. Telling about his life to his ex-bully and friend felt awkward, and not in a good way. "So I lived on the streets for a few years. I figured there's no way to get lower, so I started walking around at night to help people. Apparently most heroes don't take patrols at night, so the crime rate is a lot higher," he said warily. "That's shitty," Bakugo commented. "Yeah. Shortly, I ran into Eraserhead, and when I ended up in the hospital, he and the detective assigned to my case found a temporary solution here in UA," he concluded. A strange noise came from the ventilation system and cut the tension in the room. The two ignored it. So Katsuki started. "What now?" He looked at Izuku in the eyes. "Well, don't get it wrong, I took the entrance exam. Aizawa even offered me to take the recommendation exam. But I wanted to prove myself." Izuku turned his head to the vent. the weird sounds fading into the background until disappearing. Quiet filled the room like fog. "It's all my fault, 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗲 lowered his gaze to his hands. "What? No, it's not just 𝗳, but it's also me, right? I couldn't stop them. Don't lie to me, Deku." Izuku flinched back from the loud response. Katsuki was taken aback by his own actions. "Sorry." The dim sounds of students running to get lunch with their friends crossed the embarrassment. They were both clueless how to continue, and all Izuku wanted to do was run away and act like nothing happened, but Katsuki had more to say, and Izuku had respect for him, for trying to improve. "It's fine." He smiled. "Aizawa said I passed. I don't really know how. Anyways, we should probably go eat something and return to classes, right?" He got up and put the chair back in its place tidily. "We have time. Also, why wouldn't you pass?" Bakugu's face expression was completely serious. He waited all these years regretting his behavior, feeling remorse of all the things he did to Izuku because he was gone, and didn't get the chance to make it up to him. But now, he was standing right before him. The same kid he used to be friends with, before he everything up. "Because I'm quirkless, remember?" Izuku's eyes suddenly became dull and sad. This was just proving him right. "Deku, all that SHT we said, you know that's not true, right? We were wrong. It's because of me that the extras kicked your butt and teased you every day. After all, it's me they were following, so I should have stopped them. But I was too much of a coward." Katsuki shrunk slightly in his place. He found it relieving to say, "Wait, you said you ended up in the hospital. But, let me guess, you did another stupid thing as always." The mood was immediately lightened up, and they both laughed. "Maybe. But I just ran out of food and passed out, so yeah, you can say I did something stupid." Bakugu looked half amused and half horrified. "Nothing's new. Come on, let's go eat with the extras so you won't starve again." "Kacchan, that's rude. Don't call them extras, they are your friends." Izuku noted as they headed for the door. "Yeah, whatever." Katsuki scoffed. They got to the dining hall and sat down next to a large group of their classmates, among them Kirishima, Ashido, Kaminari, Tsuyo, Uraraka, Jiraiya, and more. Izuku could finally run a normal conversation with Ijiro, without freaking out about Bakugu showing up and killing him. They talked about Red Riot, and his pros and cons and weaknesses. Izuku was never this happy in his entire life. He also had the chance to ask his friends for details of their quirks. "Deku, you're mumbling." "Oh, sorry, Kacchan." He was too excited to have friends, that he decided to leave his urge to know more of their powers, and focus on lunch instead. "Hey, Midoriya, what's your favorite hero?" Kirishima asked curiously. From all the talks about heroes it made complete sense. "Probably still All Might, right nerd?" Bakugu teased. Izuku thought for a few moments. "Actually, I'm not sure anymore. Don't get me wrong, I still think All Might is cool. I just think that there are a lot more underrated heroes who are better." He ended up saying, "That's true." Kirishima nodded. "Anyways, I heard a new teacher is arriving. Who do you think it's going to be?" Soon enough the conversation split up into multiple ones at the same time. Izuku had never felt like he belonged, but this was just starting to make him feel like it. Almost feeling like he got the friends he never had. He was going to do everything to keep them, even if it means hiding the fact that he has no quirk. I heard he was recommended by a pro hero, and still took the normal exam, like he wants to take our places that bad. He must have like a super powerful quirk. Someone told me that he's like a teacher's pet. That's so arrogant. Why does he deserve a place in the hero course more than us? He's so lucky. I would have died to be him. He shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be here, and he knows it. He doesn't need the world to remind him that every day, but the whispering in the wind could be heard every corner. Someone heard a part of his conversations with Bakugu the day before. Quirk, or just crawling in the vents, the whispers were here. More like rumors and untrue ones. But Izuku didn't have the courage to correct them. It will cause more unnecessary waves, and then the entire school will find out that he's quirkless. He can't handle it right now. He has got real friends that want to be around him despite everything, even if they don't know that he is quirkless yet. He can't afford to lose them. The next day it became insufferable. He was just going to the bathroom at lunch break when he heard a chat between two kids that walked in. Told me he's a true show-off. Are you sure it's him? He just looks so nice and friendly around people. Yeah, they said he's just pretending or something. At least some people understand it doesn't line up. He quickly left and went to catch 𝗵𝗃𝗲 on his way to lunch with some of their classmates. Izuku winced, trying to escape the looks being spared at him as the group walked off to find a place to sit, lunch trays in hand. From the corner of his eye he saw another one of his classmates, 𝗵𝗃𝗄 Hitoshi, sitting alone. He approached him carefully, not to scare him. "Hi 𝗵𝗃𝗄. Wanna come sit with us?" He jerked his head towards the group chatting over the table, since his hands were taken. "No thanks. I'm not here to make friends." His gaze jumped from Izuku to the table and back. Said boy smiled at him. "It's okay, but eating with someone always tastes better. Maybe you will even make friends by accident and even enjoy being in their company," he suggested. Hitoshi stared at him with disbelief. "And why exactly would they be friends with me? Why wouldn't they? Everyone are very nice." Izuku cheered him softly, but no change. "Because I have a villain's quirk?" 𝗫𝗄 felt dread piling up inside of him. "What are you talking about? Your quirk is amazing and really good for hero work. You could brainwash people into cooperating and no one will get hurt. If I wasn't wrong making conclusions from the quirk assessment. If I am, then I'm so sorry. And how can it be a villainous quirk if you are already training to be a hero with it? It can't be bad unless someone bad is using it. Never mind, you're still invited to come eat with us." He finished nervously, turning to take his leave before he can make a fool of himself again. "What about you? I mean, what's your quirk?" He heard the purple-haired teen ask behind him, but tried to make it look like he never heard the question by swaying his arm from side to side, marking his friends where he is. He just can't deal with it today. Meanwhile, 𝗫𝗄 debated with himself over what the green-haired kid had told him. He also wasn't sure if Izuku couldn't hear his question for real, or he did hear it and his quirk is a sensitive subject like him. It made him confused, since he seemed so confident that Hitoshi's quirk wasn't villainous. Izuku was getting far when he heard steps after him. "Wait." He reached the table and sat down, signaling the purple-haired boy to sit next to him. "Hey guys. I brought 𝗫𝗄 to eat with us." He grinned. Hitoshi gave a little wave when everyone welcomed him kindly. It warmed his heart, so he swore to himself that this won't be the last time he will come and eat with his class. They all talked with each other with no hesitation, but he still had one question weighing him down. Izuku said he was going to check something for a moment and grab a drink, so Hitoshi used that opportunity. "Hey, do you guys know Midoriya's quirk? I don't think I have seen him use it." "No, but I heard someone say it's super powerful." "Yeah, I don't know, everybody was clueless." 𝗵𝗃𝗲 just grunted quietly. But it wasn't an "I don't care" grunt, it was an "I heard this question too many times" grunt. He knew something but he won't tell us. The break ended too quickly to everyone's liking, but in the next class they were supposed to meet the new teacher. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, making theories about who is it going to be. Izuku hoped it will be someone good. Of course he didn't have one in mind, but he had ideas for who he wouldn't want to teach him. 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝗵. He was about to turn in his seat to ask 𝗵𝗃𝗄 who he think it will be when the door opened. Then the inevitable happened. "I am here." It can't be. All Might. The entire class screamed. Well, except for Izuku and a few more shocked students. "It's me. A teacher in UA." He informed with such enthusiasm that could almost compete with present Mix 1. "Class, suit up with your hero costumes, and we will meet in the city wreck on Ground Alpha." All Might spared Izuku an undecisive look, like he was trying to remember something, like the green-haired kid was doing something wrong, and left quickly. Said boy moved out as in autopilot. He could swear All Might didn't remember him. Of course, why would he? After all, it's the #1 hero he's talking about. He must be meeting tons of people every day. Izuku felt emptiness. He isn't letting himself go back to that roof. Soon enough Izuku found himself paired up with Uraraka, the nice brunette girl from the exam. They got teamed together against Iida and 𝗵𝗃𝗄. The teams were drawn by notes, So when Izuku found he was against Katsuki, he knew it was a bad idea. Because they grew up together, Izuku knew almost every weakness of the explosive teen. Of course Bakugo had the advantage of power, but he never saw how Izuku fought. "I'm going to win, Deku." "Speak of the devil." Bakugo and Ito went past them, about to enter the building. Izuku smiled nervously. "I'll do my best." He held his palm in front and closed it to a fist. "Deku," Uraraka said with an insurance tone in her voice. "Isn't your name Izuku?" "Well yeah, but Kacchan and I were childhood friends, at some point. So we have nicknames." "I like it." She grinned. "It sounds a lot like you can do it." Deku/Deku, "Oh teach thanks. You can call me like that too if you want." He said. "Sweet. Alright, we need to start on a strategy. Do you have any ideas?" Actually yes. Your quirk works on a 5 points contact, right?" Uraraka nodded enthusiastically. "Come on, Izuku. It's your chance to show you can be here." He started mumbling his plan to Ochako while taking breaks to breath and hear what she thinks about it. "Hold on, what about you? What will you be doing?" She stopped him. Izuku tidied his sports uniform and tried to lower it on his sleeves. "I'm going for Bakugo. I know almost everything about him." "Is your quirk any good against his explosions?" "What is it actually?" "No one really knows," she added quietly in the end. I'm Quirkless," Izuku stuttered, expecting the worst. Waiting for the last disgusted glance, the change of groups, for being left alone, and you got into the hero course. "That's incredible." Her smile spread itself to the green boy as well. To his surprise, the tournament never came. He spent years avoiding people who treated him terrible just from the fact that he doesn't have a quirk. He was so shocked he forgot to answer back to Uraraka. "Thanks, though I'd really appreciate it if you don't go screaming it to everyone because, you know." His voice turned into whisper with every word. "Sure. Also time is running out, let's finish up." She put on the helmet of her costume back. Izuku kind of felt bad he didn't have a hero costume, but he thought it was good practice for himself without any support gear. The two concluded the plan, and when the time ran out they stood prepared, waiting for the announcement to begin the fight. As soon as All Might set them off they ran in, splitting up. Izuku felt hesitant. Was Uraraka really going to help him lay low and hide his quirklessness? Sure, that wouldn't last long, but maybe she just didn't hear right. No, he had to concentrate. He had a plan to perform and accomplish. He stepped closer to the middle of the building when he heard loud stomping. That must be Bakugo, looking for them on the first floor. It didn't take long until he heard the comms in his ear crackle as the voice of Uraraka popped out. "Deku-kun, I found the weapon. It's on the second floor, the most middle room. Ito-kun is here guarding it. Are you confident you can take on Bakugo? He is your childhood friend after all, and he has this super powerful quirk." She sounded a bit worried, but Izuku knew she trusted him and he can't lose that. "Yes, of course. Maybe we can even avoid any unnecessary fights if Ito won't alert him as backup. Just follow the plan." He heard Uraraka humming in improvement and turned to the direction she went to so he could join her on the second level. He was a meter from the stairwell when Bakugo got in his way. Izuku froze. He was intimidated. He felt so small. Like he kept shrinking compared to his ex-bully, especially with his cargo and gauntlets. He took a deep breath. Katsuki isn't that old person anymore. He can do this. "Where do you think you're going, nerd?" said boy yelled at him. His palms were clammy, and tiny sparks started flying down out of them. This single moment of overthinking cost Izuku a burning hand, grabbing his 𝗵𝗃, going for making him go off guard. Then he came at him. An opening. Deku took his reaching arm after a mini explosion was released his way, and pulled. "I have known you for years, and you still use a thick right hook to start a fight?" The blonde was lifted to the air, shocked. Izuku slammed him to the ground, seconds later trying to tie a struggling Katsuki. "Stop moving, Kacchan," he asked, not believing that it would change anything. In response, Katsuki just glared at him. After he finished up, he ran up the stairs and found Uraraka standing right in front of Ida. When he noticed him, he tried one of the villain phrases he had been practicing loudly, and Ochako turned to look. "Who is he talking to?" "I'm sorry, Deku-kun, he saw me around the corner," she apologized. It's okay. I'm sorry I couldn't come sooner. Counter. They looks, knowing what to do. They only needed to touch the huge rocket, so they took a risk and ran. At the same time, around the room from different ways. Ida was so confused he didn't know which one to chase, so he decided to go for the weapon. Of course, after these few seconds he made up his mind and took too long. Everyone knew then when All Might's booming voice was crinkling over the microphone. Team heroes win. Good job everybody. Everything was getting too loud with the explosions and All Might, but Izuku smiled through it. He came to Ida to compliment him of making a good opponent, and Katsuki even told him he did well. In his own way, at least. He couldn't save himself from a trip to Recovery Girl. After trying to convince his friends and Katsuki, he can take care of it at home with some burn cream. At the end of the day, Izuku was left alone to walk back to the school property, heading to the dorms, when he tripped. But this time it wasn't from himself, but a group of kids on his year that he was passing next to tripped him. Tired, he barely managed to catch himself on time. He heard a few giggles, and watch where you're going, but he ignored them as the last of the classmates they were waiting for ran out of the class to join them. He was so drained. But his heart was blooming with new friends. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 Chapter 20. Kind of boring, but I'm finally back. I just wanted to thank y'all for so much support on this 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Originally it was just to get this short story off my mind, but you are making me so freaking happy. XD the comments are hilarious. Grinning squinting face, you make me smiley and make my day. Sparkling heart, hope you are all doing well. Glowing star raccoon, glowing star love. Lukasraccoon. Izuku entered the classroom the next morning, only to find it empty. It wasn't that early, but even Ida still wasn't here. Awful silence was the only thing that was present. So he waited. And he waited. He sat down in his assigned seat and waited. He got bored, so he cleaned the class in a flash, but no one came. He decided to go walk around to see if at least some people are here. He found comfort in a few students complaining to each other about something he couldn't hear, but that's it. That was suspicious. It was too quiet. Then he saw why. Izuku decided to go outside to the main gate, when he was attacked by a large group of people yelling at students on the other side, blocking the way in. The press was always too annoying and loud, but this was disturbing. He spotted Katsuki swallowed by the audience, screaming at everyone in sight while trying to get through. If he was being honest, that was going to take a while. He went back to the school and went straight to the teacher's lounge. Of course, without running, just speed walking. The room was almost empty, since classes were about to begin, so he spotted Eraserhead pretty fast. Aizawa-sensei, he paused, unsure how to explain the situation. Said man spared him a look, then got up and stood in front of him. "What is it, Midoriya?" he asked, eyeing him up and down. The reporters outside are kind of blocking the way in for the students, and I thought you could do something about it." He pointed out behind his shoulder with his thumb. The black-haired figure wasn't sure what exactly is the situation, therefore he went to the front gate to see for himself. The greenet followed with smaller and faster steps. At the moment a few more students managed to filter inside, hiding or pushing the interviewers and camera men out of the way. This gave an extra chance for other students to go over the formed way, carved in the audience. Soon Principal Nizu joined Aizawa as they analyzed the problem. The two conflicted over something, while Izuku tried to catch Bakugo, who managed to thread his way in. He was steaming with anger, like a ticking bomb about to explode over the tiniest comment. Izuku came to check on him, while heading inside. Then he had an idea. What if he could help get the reporters away? No, that wouldn't work, but they can always reschedule a conference with All Might. Midoriya, go back to class. It's about to begin. He didn't even realize he stopped on his tracks. Eraserhead didn't even turn to face him, still half talking to the mouse in question. "What if I can help Dash? We got this. Don't hold yourself over it, it's fine." There it is again. That feeling. He is the same quirkless, useless kid. No matter what. He went to follow his friend's lead, taking him to class. "You got lucky, nerd. Living inside the school," Bakugo said as they entered the huge door. "Ha, yes." Izuku tried to relate it to the joke. The two sat down, but Midoriya couldn't focus on anything or get the emptiness out of his brain. After a few minutes the classroom was filled with angry, tired teenagers, all chatting endlessly. What a mess. These reporters were brutal, man. Dude, that was so not manly of them. Yeah, what a fuss. The rest of the classes went by fast and smoothly. At lunch break, Izuku sat with 𝗬𝗧𝗏, Ida, ☮𝗵𝗃, and a few more of his new friends. They were having a small talk which Izuku wasn't participating in, dozing off a bit and staring at his tray of food, when suddenly some alarm about a breach in security went off. They just can't have a quiet, normal day, right? Everything became a mess. Students at the cafeteria swarmed out, pushing each other and getting stuck at the too small door. Loud noises and screaming filled the air, and people who were familiar with each other were separated and now surrounded by strangers. Izuku was now alone, still figuring out what the heck is going on after he daydreamed for a few seconds. Can this day get any better? The whole building was flooded with students, pushing each other out of their way and crashing with others. The ground was shaking, heads were bumping, and feet stepped on different ones. Someone calling his name from afar. Or was it close? He didn't know anymore. In seconds he found himself flat on the window, head hitting the cold glass and cheeks smudging against it. His stomach growled, missing his forgotten meal. He stared outside for a few moments, when he saw the same people from the morning, the reporters. But this time they were exposed. The gate was wide open. Did someone unlock it? How were they allowed in at all? Did they make an agreement? Then why was the alarm on? His mind was full. It doesn't matter right now. Everyone needed to know this. Izuku was screaming his lungs out, but his voice got swallowed by the shoutings in the hall. What should he do? He can't move too much without getting an elbow to the nose, and his head now hurts like hell. But he needed to find someone. Maybe one of his classmates, yes. They can cooperate to calm everyone down. He looked around when he stumbled upon another problem. He was too short. Because for years his diet was limited, and based on half-cooked instant noodles, his growth sprout was probably delayed, and maybe even wasted. He hoped not. He watched as students kept pushing in the hallway, but not getting out at the same rate. Then, out of the blue, he spotted a stiff arm chopping the air, yelling at people about their behavior or something. Ida. Izuku tried to catch his attention as he felt relief washing over him, but too soon. He let his guard down, and as he anticipated, got an elbow to his face from someone tall spinning on their heels. The taste of salty BLD leaked down to his mouth and dripped on his uniform. He kept on moving forward towards the navy-haired head, slightly taller than the students around him. Ida-kun, he yelled with a now screechy voice. Said boy turned and Izuku saw his gaze jumping behind his square glasses until his eyes landed on him. Midoriya-kun. Are you 𝗬𝗏? He got closer and stopped when he saw the crimson traces of BLD on Izuku's face. Your nose. You should go to recovery, girl. His limbs slicing the tight space between the two as they speak. More like shout. Izuku wiped his lips and nose with his 𝗵𝗃. I'm fine. Can you help me out? There is no actual break-in. It's just the press from the morning. Ida looked concerned. That is indeed unpredictable, but there is no use. No one is listening. He admitted. Then a girl with brown hair was pushed between them. Izuku scrambled to help her not lose her balance. Are you all right, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗃-san? It's you. She looked at him with utter relief. Deku-kun. Ida-kun. I'm so glad I found you guys. I was so scared. She sighed. Behind her Yaoyorozu followed, with a worried expression on her face. Midoriya-kun, is your nose okay? Izuku waved her off. His mind raced. The loud noises in the background didn't help at all. Hey, Yaoyorozu, can you make me a megaphone? And 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏-san, can I ask you for a favor? When they nodded, clueless, he continued. Can you make Ida-kun float please? We need to find a way to catch everyone's attention. It's not really a breach in security, it's just the reporters. When he finished, Momo handed him the megaphone, and Ochako was already activating her quirk on Ida, who was now trying to regain his position in zero gravity, holding to the megaphone for his life. Everyone, calm down. This is not an appropriate behavior for UA students. There is no breach in security, it was just the press trespassing. Everyone went silent. Please. Evacuate from the hall calmly. It was a bit slow, but pieces of floor were getting more and more visible. 𝗬𝗏𝗃 lowered 𝗧𝗏 and released her quirk. The adrenaline rush flooding in his veins lowered, and the pain was starting to get insufferable. Maybe he should go to Recovery Girl now that it's over. Something didn't sit right. The more he thought about it, the more this entire break-in didn't make any sense. He was on his way to Recovery Girl with 𝗬𝗏𝗃, 𝗧𝗏, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏, and the sea of injured students waiting to get healed. His brain never ceases activity. So did someone from the staff let the press inside? Or maybe it was the work of one of the reporters' quirks. No, that can't be, it would count as illegal quirk usage. But still the possibilities were endless, and it was dreading. Although not as much as waiting for his turn at Recovery Girl's office. He could just go back to class and come back later with no pressure. That sounds nice. Maybe he can see if his friends are fine, and then make them go back to class with him. At the end of the day, he did remember to go back to her, but due to the exhaustion of the last week and the missing lunch he ended up falling asleep right there. He woke up an hour later with no more BLD in his nostrils and mouth, and still feeling tired. When he lifted his hand to feel his nose, he found a band-aid on it. He was also hungry again, but that could wait. All he wanted to do was figure out how the press got in, but his body had different plans. The moment Izuku closed the door behind him, he collapsed on his bed. Too groggy to move, he stared at his desk, the notebooks aligned on the small shelf, his entire life's work. His eyelids felt droopy, so he closed them, waiting for sleep to find its way into silencing his mind's thoughts. Today we will be having a field trip to the USJ facility. Aizawa's voice boomed through the silence, the same silence that broke moments later by chatters of joy. Everyone went quiet after a glance of red eyes. The USJ stands for Unforeseen Simulation Joint. We will be working on your rescue skills with Pro Heroes 13 and All Might, so suit up with your hero costumes and wait outside near the bus. Chattering students rumbled out of the classroom, competing to the changing rooms. Izuku still didn't have a costume, but now he had a thin but strong rope he could tie criminals with. He put on his gym uniform quickly, and left to find his teacher and the school bus. It was exiting. Rescue is the main reason why he wanted to be a hero, and now he finally gets the chance to improve this skill. All you thought, the ride was stretching too long. Asuie commented something about Katsuki's attitude, or that he will never be popular, but all Izuku could focus on was how Bakugo tried to oppose that opinion but tried with all his strength not to snap on her. He really has changed. And for the best. It took him off guard sometimes, but he can try getting used to this. Everything was changing anyways, so it didn't feel like that big of a deal at the moment. He leaned on the window. He should thank Bakugo later. For taking things to his own hands and doing his best, of course. Izuku felt like his childhood friend never got praised about it, that's for sure. He wasn't really in the mood to talk to somebody. He kept his walls up and prepared. He didn't even realize he was doing it or knew what for, but his instinct screamed at him to be vigilant. He watched the school's institutions pass by in slow motion. In the background he heard the bus engine running, which he was certain is normal, but the fact that the last time he was on a bus was more than 10 years ago made him paranoid. His attention passed to his classmates getting ready to leave as a giant dome appeared on the front windshield. He caught a small look from Bakugo, who turned his head the second he saw Izuku's eyes on him. He let out a weak, tired sigh and got off the bus. The structure was huge. It was so gigantic that it had different areas to mimic different surroundings. In front of the class gathering stood Aizawa, and near him Pro Hero 13. Where's All Might? The entire class was having these questions, but all their sensei answered was that All Might couldn't come in his monotone voice. Still something felt off for him too, and Izuku spotted a glimpse of it in his eyes. As much as Izuku cared to question it, a part of him felt relief for not having to deal with the #1 hero, and the odd looks the guy spared him every 5 minutes. The two present pros started to explain what was today's purpose, and what they were supposed to do when something caught his eye. A little amount of purple mist swirled in the air behind the heroes. His face twitched uncomfortably. "Sensei, what is that?" He and a few other students pointed. He turned around, scarf in hand, when people started dropping in from nowhere. The purple mist must have been some sort of a warp gate. How many people could it fit? Can it split up or expand? Izuku knew it wasn't the time to geek about quirks, but this time it was important. This can easily lead to disaster. Stay back. Those are villains. 13. Protect the students. Aizawa's voice sounded cold and calm, but a hint of surprise snuck in it. Izuku's feet unconsciously moved to a tense fighting stance. Then, every single clear space filled with the same dark violet smoke. All of their senses went distorted, up was down, and a smile was a frown, and then it left. Izuku shook off the rest of the new feeling when he realized he was underwater. His vision was blurry, with a small source of light coming from a direction that felt like up. He felt like he was choking. The struggle hit him at once, when something rope-like pulled him out carefully. He gasped. God, how he had missed being exposed to air. He coughed water from his body, wiping his eyes while scanning for his new area. Are you okay, Midoriya-chan? The voice of his classmate sounded slightly faint due to some water in his ears. Yes, thank you, Azui-san, he said with a shudder. I told you to call me Tsuyo-chan. She corrected him. Near her stood Shinso with a neutral expression. Inside he was worried, of course, but he didn't know how to show it. The three of them were standing on a shipwreck in the water zone, separated from the class. What happened? Did the villains just invade to their lesson? He didn't pose these thoughts because the answer was very obvious. Is the rest of the class in small groups too? Shinso asked. The trio looked around. From afar they could spot some of their classmates scattered all over the facility in different destruction zones and surrounded by villains. Eraserhead was separated from 13, and was alone in the middle when a guy with light blue hair. But a few things felt off. 1. Where were the villains they were supposed to fight? 2. They sent Azui to the water zone. The villains didn't know their quirks. That just made it a lot more easier. Water dripped from his hair and clothes to the ground. He looked down again when the entire ship moved. The villains were here. He formed a plan. Izuku rubbed the bridge of his nose above the band-aid from the security breach, as he formed a plan. Sending a few glances to Shinso and Tsuyo, he explained to them what they needed to do. Of course he also had a part in this, quirk or no quirk. They counted down. 3, 2, 1. The ship tilted to the side again. Go! Izuku whispered. Tsuyo pretended to fall into the water. She has a frog quirk, so water shouldn't be much of a problem to her. Quite the opposite. She has an advantage over them as a fast swimmer. Izuku was excited to see her quirk in action, but he waved it off, focus returning to him. The two watched as she progressed in the lake, drawing a few villains and then more and more and more. Then, she sent her tongue and wrapped it around the boat's railing. Pulling herself towards the shipwreck, she climbed back on it, using her stickiness and the help of Izuku. In the meantime, Shinso was already warming up his voice. Hey! What do you want? He screamed at them. Izuku doesn't think he has ever heard him shout this loudly before. Almost all of the villains gave some sort of vocal answer. Shinso grinned. Cuff your fellow criminals and then yourself. He seemed to concentrate HRD on keeping them from releasing and breaking the control. Everyone seemed to be strangled in some ropes and a few fishing nets they found on shore. The three teens got off the ship fast and ran. They made their way to the locked exit, but when it came to view, Izuku paused in his place. What is it, Midoriya-chan? Azui asked. She pointed to the door. We should get out to get help? He turned around. You do that? I bet the two of you are more exhausted than me after using your quirk and on so many people. He eyed the purple-headed, trying to hide a migraine. But I can still help others. Just go find someone. I'll send anyone faster if I see others. He walked to the center, where he last had sight of his teacher, not seeing them nod. Behind him, he made sure the two left, so as soon as he was stepping alone, he relaxed. Help was coming. That was progress. But too soon. Izuku went up the stairs and his eyes widened at what he saw. The man with light blue hair covered in hands. Shigaraki, the villain he stumbled upon rumors of him in the past, monologuing to Eraserhead, and besides him stood a monster. That was the definition. A tall, black, brain-exposed creature. It was terrifying. He said that this monster was made to kill All Might. Is that why they were here? But All Might ended up not coming. How will that make them react? He couldn't wait any longer, so he jumped outside the moment he saw Shigaraki coming to attack Eraserhead. Except he just yelled out, "Gnome? Take him down." Like a leader of a big march, he pointed at Izuku, and in less than a second a dark blur flew past them and pinned the hero to the ground. Izuku wasn't fast enough. Izuku passed out. He saw crimson liquid leaking. BLD, that wasn't his. He picked up the first sharp piece of rubble he could find and jumped on the monster. There was nothing he could do except for hitting the obvious weakness with the rock over and over. At first, it seemed like it regenerated as if it never got it. But then, the gnome seemed to ease up, and the hit that he got finally took damage. It slackened, releasing its hold on Izuku. Izuku had to get him out of here. "Hey, hands guy. You." Shigaraki turned his head up at him, surprise taking over his facade. "How about you take your buddies and leave, and mind your own business?" The guy was angry. He started throwing a tantrum like a kid losing a video game for the ninth time in a row. "How dare you? How did you slow down his regeneration? You cheater. Kurogiri. Why is he glitching?" He shouted when the purple mist arrived, this one with yellow eyes, scanning the situation. Izuku took the chance and dragged his teacher away from the scene as the two villains talked about 3 students that left the facility. 3. That was great. He quickly used the man's scarf to wrap any bleeding wounds. He scanned him again, making sure he was still there and alive with a pulse, and returned to distract the villains. Kurogiri left to talk to somebody else, and Shigaraki attacked, annoyed by him. It was pointless. He was now sparring with a villain just like his time in the streets. He was getting tired, huffing heavily after every move. The hand-covered man used an open window to land all 5 fingers on Izuku's arm. Izuku hissed. His skin started to crumble between the fingers, blood oozing out. He tried to pull away his hand, but there was no way out. Out of nowhere it stopped. "You really are cool, Eraserhead." Shigaraki strained out. Izuku saw an opening and tripped Shigaraki. Behind him Izuku lost his consciousness again. "I am here." All Might barged through the door alongside the other faculty members. They all stopped in place when they saw the mess. Kurogiri came back. "Tamura, we should leave." The heroes called for backup. "It will arrive any minute now." While Shigaraki was busy yelling at everyone now that All Might was here, the heroes started a counterattack. Izuku grabbed Eraserhead carefully and headed with him to the exit. Red blaring lights arrived as soon as the two snuck out of the USJ, immediately rushing out of the vehicles to help Izuku. They wrapped his arm while he waited for his friends to come so he can see they were fine. The moment he got to his dorm he crashed. Happy Face Carrot tried to draw us each but it gave up mid-drawing. We got so far. Pep's beaming face with smiling eyes. "Should I make Toga good?" 𝗵𝗃 weekly shout out. Sadie Girl 5 folded hands. 𝗵𝗃 7. The sound of the heart monitor was beeping through the silence. Izuku stared at his blonde friend keeping him company. He woke up about an hour ago, got healed by Recovery Girl, got back to nap and woke up again. Present Mike was making an attempt to chat about what happened, and assure that everyone is doing good and no one got hurt when this came out. "Zashi, I swear, he looked just like Shirakumo. It happened again and I almost couldn't save him this time too," he said with his usual gruff voice. The two shared a sigh. "You know, I miss him too. There must have been something that you haven't seen before to make it pop up again," Yamada suggested, tilting his head to the side. The pair were still in their hero costumes, Izuku because he just woke up, and Yamada because he hadn't had the chance to go home. Eraserhead thought for a long moment. He remembered things blurring, but one thing caught his attention in Midoriya's face. The band-aid on the nose. He pointed at his own, where the white strip was placed. The memory just jumped in. He added after a silent break. Mike sent him a sad smile. "You know it wasn't your fault, right?" Izuku nodded. "Everyone else got out uninjured thanks to you. But please, don't scare me like that ever again." Yamada sent his hand to hold the others. Izuku's bandaged face softened as he accepted the gesture. "I still can't see a good way Izuku is going to handle all that pressure alone, after seeing me injured like that. He doesn't have the parents to support him through that." His gaze moved slowly between Yamada and the rest of the room, signaling his uneasiness. The little listener is very strong. Maybe later you can go check on his elbow. The blonde grinned and added, well, it's still the middle of the night, so let's get some rest. Everything else can wait for tomorrow. He declared. Aizawa hummed quietly in agreement as he settled down. Then again, he couldn't help but think about how to help the boy. When Izuku got up the next morning, he just started crying. His body was so tense, but now that the adrenaline wore off and everything came back to him after the night, it was all too much. He hugged his patched-up arm close to his ear. He knew he should go to Recovery Girl, but what was the point? Would he even be able to be a hero if he can't save the one person who wants him in their life? He got up from bed and stood in the middle of the small dorm room. Right? Uniform. He headed to pick up his clothes and carefully took off his shirt. Then he stopped to remember that school was cancelled for the day. He was left tired and clueless of what should he do next, so he just sat on the bed. He just sat for an hour that seemed like a few minutes until his bandages itched. But just to touch close to the wound alerted pain. It reminded him that he needed to take a shower, so he snatched a towel and although his legs wobbled, he left to the common baths. You will never be enough, useless Deku. The next morning Izuku woke up to a nightmare, went for a run, and got to class early. Well, not earlier than Ida, of course. The rest of the class came in as usual, and every other thing seemed as if nothing changed. The only thing that seemed to be different was the moment Aizawa got into the class and his head was still wrapped in bandages, just like Izuku's arm. Every noise that flooded the classroom after their teacher told about the sports festival went dim, and Izuku's mind went spiraling all the way. Is it safe? What made them decide that? How was Aizawa standing here right now? He got hurt. Izuku wasn't fast enough to save him. There was BLD. The League of Villains can teleport anytime and everywhere. If they weren't the final boss, who is? How can they stop them before anyone gets hurt again? How? 𝗬𝗵𝗲 Midoriya, stay for a minute. Before he noticed, the lesson was over, and Eraserhead's voice calling his name lunched him awake. Yes, sensei? He bit the inside of his cheeks, nervous. But the man seemed to completely ignore the spirals for now, locking their looks. Have you gone to Recovery Girl about your arm yet? He asked, strands of night black hair falling forward as if to protect his vision. Izuku blinked in surprise as stared at him for a very long moment. No, not yet. He garbled out. That's fine, I'll come with you. Aizawa answered. They left the classroom. So, how are you holding up, kid? Izuku slowed down a bit. I'm fine, he said carefully and carelessly at the same time. Aizawa threw the growing concern away from his face. Don't tell me you were worried about me. He spotted a small glance at him before the green eyes turned away. Izuku, you can worry about yourself sometimes, you know? Even if the people you used to be around never gave you the chance to. I'm fine, you see. Because I got help from someone who isn't myself. Like Recovery Girl. And like you. Tears streamed down Izuku's freckled cheeks, and now not just from the pain in his elbow. Got that, problem child? Izuku nodded. He wiped his face, and the two got to Recovery Girl's office. They got almost fully healed, had some gummies, and Izuku returned to his dorm room. The sports festival has arrived, and every first year has gathered to hear the opening speech made by Bakugo. And as you can expect, it didn't go the smoothest. Over the last few weeks the entire school worked harder than ever, trying to get ready for the sports festival. Izuku doesn't have anyone who will be watching him on TV, but he still needed to prove everyone who will be watching that quirkless people can be heroes. He also heard from his classmates that they will be moving in to the dorms sooner. He guessed it was half from the villain attack on the USJ, and half so he won't stay there alone. He warmed up for the first round, the obstacle course. He felt prepared. Except that he wasn't ready for it mentally. Hey, green kid. Izuku turned towards the call. You actually gonna use your quirk to win? A tall guy from business course with dark red hair stood, laughing with a few of his friends. Some of them looked a bit unpleased. Izuku opened his mouth to answer when Ida came scolding them for not seeing he was preparing for the race. He was thankful for Ida's strict behavior. He walked away and sighed in relief. The less people knowing he doesn't have a quirk for now the better. Just like the entrance exam, Present Mike gave the go and the people charged forward. Izuku rushed forward, dodging the robots and not wasting power over them. An ice slide formed near him and the robots, so Izuku snatched an iron plate from a crushed robot and slid on it as well, catching distance. He went past the abyss carefully, while some used their quirks or support items to get ahead. Speaking of which, he needed to find a way to get advantage on everyone. He could have used one of the large robots, but looking back he saw everything was frozen. Probably 𝗳𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. In front of him he saw a mine field. The wheels in his head worked fast as he formed a plan. Using the metal scrap he found himself still clutching onto, he dug out mines and combined them to create a massive explosion. He winced in the air as memories from middle school attacked his thread of thoughts. No, he has to pay attention. When he landed he placed a bet if he would land on a mine and hit the metal scrap on the ground. It exploded. He was sent forward and kept running. Bakugo and 𝗳𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 on his tail, the three arrived almost at the same time. But Izuku was first. The next round was in groups. Izuku needed to find someone who will want to team up with him, even if he has the most points tied up to him. Hey Deku-kun. Want to team up? Uraraka jumped in front of him with enthusiasm. Are you sure? That would make you a big target too, he shared his concern. Yeah. Don't worry about it. She smiled. Izuku was so thankful to have her as a friend. They got 2 more teammates, Tokoyami and 𝗵𝗃 from support course. So, what's the plan? She asked, the crosses on her eye moving continuously. Well, I thought maybe we could get rid of the headband, Izuku said, half thinking how to make this idea work. But we're not allowed to take the headband off our heads, and if we throw it off bounds when people could with stretchy quirks take it back to them. Uraraka explained and Tokoyami nodded. I know 𝗵𝗃, can one of your inventions burn anything? Izuku asked. The girl's eyes literally sparkled. Start. Present Mick's voice echoed in the stadium. The group pulled up near the border, now in the sky. Many teams were on their way to them. They had to act fast. 𝗵𝗃 messed with one of her items until it made a small explosion, lighting up Izuku's headband. Soon enough everyone was fighting others, and the scent of burnt hair filled the air. It worked like magic. They used one of the distracted teams and stole their headband plus another one they stole. When the buzzer was heard to signal the end of the round, Izuku saw that their group was in the second place right under Bakugo. We did it! They all yelled and shared high fives. The last round was a 1v1 tournament. Izuku was up against 𝗫𝗏𝗀. He doesn't like fighting against his friends, but convinced himself it was like training. It was time for his battle. When he got out to the stage he spotted 𝗫𝗏𝗀 on the other side, determined looking. The fight started. Izuku waited to see what his first move would be, both since he knew about his quirk, and because that's how he was used to fight on the streets. 𝗫𝗏𝗀 opened his mouth. If he's all about his quirk, then Izuku decided to start moving forward, prepared to attack. Why won't you tell us your quirk? If it's that powerful you shouldn't have a problem with revealing it. Unless it's not, and you were just being a hypocrite. That day you invited me to lunch with the class the first time. I saw Bakugo's look when I asked what your quirk was, and no one knew. He said. Izuku stopped moving. Got you, 𝗫𝗏𝗀 thought. It's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. So I guess you are 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗃 continued, but was cut off by Izuku. I'm Quirkless she stopped. 𝗫𝗏𝗀 looked surprised by what he said as he gained control over him. His face softened as he confronted himself about his next move. Izuku was stuck in his mind again, just like that day with the sludge villain. He felt like he couldn't breathe again. Walk out of bounds? 𝗫𝗏𝗀's order sounded sorry. Izuku gasped for air as he regained his control over his body. Tears filled his eyes. Midoriya is out of bounds. 𝗫𝗏𝗀 is the winner. 𝗫𝗏𝗀 noticed the crying and came to check on him. Hey, are you okay? I'm sorry for all of that, I just really wanted to prove them that my quirk is good for hero work. Yeah, that was so cool. Izuku smiled and rubbed his eyes. He held his hand out. Good fight. 𝗫𝗏𝗀 grinned as well. He took the offered hand and shook it. The two left the stadium. In the end Bakugo won, of course. In the second place was 𝗳𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, and in the third was Iida, who had to leave for family business, so 𝗫𝗏𝗀 replaced him. The boy has never looked so happy in his entire life. Someone in a dark room watched the green-haired teen from a screen. Interesting, Quirkless, you say? I see. Imagine what would happen if I gave him a quirk.